The legal confrontation between the Pentagon and the media has once again thrust the delicate balance between national security and press freedom into the national spotlight, reigniting a debate that has persisted for decades in American history. At the heart of the controversy is a federal court's recent decision to block certain restrictions imposed by the U.S. Department of Defense, DoD, on journalists covering military operations. The court concluded that these restrictions were likely in violation of the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of the press, emphasizing that governmental overreach in the name of national security cannot come at the expense of constitutionally protected rights. The backdrop to this case is a long-standing tension between military authorities and the press. Journalists have historically played a vital role in informing the public about the conduct of government operations, including those of the armed forces, while military leaders have argued that operational security is paramount to protect troops, classified information, and national interests. This tension often results in a delicate tug-of-war where the rights of the press intersect and sometimes collide with the imperatives of national defense. The Washington Post, along with other major news organizations, has covered this ongoing legal battle extensively, noting that the federal court's decision represents a significant check on the Department of Defense's authority. According to legal analysts, the ruling underscores the principle that even in matters of national security, the government cannot impose overly broad restrictions that limit the press's ability to report on issues of public interest. The specific restrictions initially imposed by the Pentagon were part of a broader effort to regulate media access to military operations and personnel. The DoD argued that these measures were necessary to prevent inadvertent leaks of classified information and to ensure that sensitive operational details did not compromise the safety of military personnel or ongoing missions. Critics, however, maintain that the rules were vague, excessively broad, and could be interpreted to inhibit legitimate reporting, effectively curtailing the press's ability to perform its watchdog function. In response to the court's ruling, the Department of Defense has introduced a revised set of guidelines intended to replace the blocked restrictions. These new rules outline the parameters within which journalists may report on military activities, interactions with personnel, and handling of potentially classified material. While the DoD claims that these adjustments address the court's concerns, media organizations and press freedom advocates have voiced immediate skepticism. Many argue that the new guidelines still contain broad provisions that could be used to stifle reporting, particularly in areas that touch upon sensitive or controversial military operations. The implications of this dispute extend far beyond the courtroom. Legal scholars note that the case may set a precedent regarding the limits of governmental authority over the press, particularly when it comes to matters framed as essential to national security. Past cases, such as New York Times Company versus United States, the famous Pentagon Papers case of 1971, illustrate how courts have historically weighed the government's interest in secrecy against the public's right to know. In that case, the Supreme Court ruled against prior restraint, emphasizing that even classified information may be subject to public scrutiny when reporting on government actions is concerned. The current Pentagon media dispute echoes similar themes, reminding the public and policymakers of the enduring tension between secrecy and transparency. Civil liberties organizations, congressional oversight committees, and international press freedom watchdogs are all closely monitoring developments in this case. Many argue that the Pentagon's actions, even if well-intentioned, risk undermining democratic norms by curtailing the press's ability to hold the government accountable. Journalists maintain that unfettered access to information about military operations, defense policy, and the conduct of public officials is a cornerstone of democracy, ensuring that citizens remain informed and that leaders remain answerable for their decisions. The debate also touches on practical considerations for journalists in the field. Covering military operations is inherently challenging, requiring reporters to navigate complex legal frameworks, ethical considerations, and security concerns. Restrictions that are vague or overly restrictive can create a chilling effect, discouraging investigative reporting and limiting the public's understanding of critical issues. Journalists covering active military operations, defense contracts, or sensitive technological developments face the additional challenge of balancing thorough reporting with adherence to security protocols. A balancing act made more difficult by rules that are not always clear or consistently applied. Beyond national implications, the Pentagon media conflict carries international significance. Observers note that the outcome of this case could influence global perceptions of press freedom in the United States. Nations often cite U.S. standards on media rights as a benchmark, and actions that appear to curtail press freedoms, even in the name of security, may be scrutinized by international organizations and foreign governments. This has implications for diplomatic credibility, global media relations, and the broader image of the United States as a champion of democratic values. Furthermore, the case highlights the broader societal debate over the boundaries of government secrecy in a digital age. With information now circulating more rapidly than ever, governments face increased pressure to control the dissemination of sensitive material, while citizens and journalists demand greater transparency and accountability. The rise of digital media platforms, social networks, and instantaneous global communication has intensified this debate, making the question of how to balance security and free expression more urgent and complex. While the federal court's decision blocking the Pentagon's original restrictions was hailed by press freedom advocates as a victory for constitutional rights, the DoD's new rules ensure that the controversy is far from resolved. Legal analysts predict additional challenges are likely as journalists and media organizations continue to scrutinize the revised guidelines and their potential implications. In the meantime, reporters covering military affairs must navigate a nuanced and sometimes perilous landscape, balancing professional ethics, legal obligations, and the public interest. The ongoing dispute serves as a reminder of the fragile equilibrium that exists between the state and the press. It underscores the importance of an independent media in safeguarding democratic norms, while simultaneously highlighting the government's responsibility to protect national security. How this legal battle is ultimately resolved will have lasting consequences, shaping not only press practices, but also public expectations regarding transparency, accountability, and the limits of government authority. In a broader sense, the Pentagon media legal battle exemplifies the enduring struggle inherent in democratic societies, the need to reconcile security with liberty, secrecy with openness, and authority with accountability. As this case unfolds, the eyes of journalists, legal experts, civil liberties advocates, and the public remain firmly fixed on the courtroom, understanding that the outcome will resonate well beyond the immediate parties involved. It will define the boundaries of press freedom, influence the conduct of government agencies, and help set the tone for how future conflicts between national security and the public's right to know are resolved. In essence, the Pentagon versus media dispute is far more than a legal skirmish. It is a high-stakes confrontation over the principles that underpin democracy itself, a vivid illustration of the tension between the imperatives of state security and the enduring power of an informed, engaged citizenry. The resolution of this case will likely be studied and debated for years to come, shaping not only the landscape of American journalism, but also the broader understanding of how democratic societies negotiate the delicate balance between security and freedom.